Picture the hills of Tuscany, you probably think of sunshine, wine, beautiful landscapes. But for nearly 2 decades, this picturesque setting was the hunting ground for one of Italy's most notorious and, well, most elusive serial killers, the Monster of Florence. So today, we're going to dive into this incredibly chilling, unsolved case that honestly still haunts Italy to this day.
And this isn't some campfire story. This was the terrifying reality for a whole generation. We're talking about a predator who stalked lovers' lanes, who operated with his brutal precision, and then just vanished. So the question is, how did one killer create a legacy of terror that is still so palpable even now?
So where does a story like this even begin? Well, it doesn't start with a city in panic or a massive manhunt. It starts with a single brutal crime. A murder that, for years, everyone thought was just an isolated incident, a tragic but closed case. The truth, as you'll see, was way more sinister.
Okay, so picture this. August 1968, a quiet night. Barbara Locke and Antonio LaBianco are shot and killed in their car. It's a tragic scene, but what made it absolutely horrifying was the discovery of Barbara's 6-year-old son, Natalino, asleep in the backseat. He was physically unharmed, but, can you imagine? He becomes the first and maybe the most tragic witness in this whole sprawling case.
So the police show up, and to them, it looks like an open and shut case. A crime of passion for sure. They focused right in on Lockie's husband, and he was quickly arrested and convicted. Case closed, right? Well, with everyone thinking the killer was behind bars, the real murderer was free to just melt back into the shadows. And that mistake, man, it would have devastating consequences years later. For 6 long years, the hills around Florence were quiet. The 1968 murder just kind of faded from memory, filed away as solved. But then, in 1974, that shadow returned. And this time, the monster revealed his true nature.
Yeah, September 1974. It happens again. Another young couple murdered in their car in a secluded area. The method was just eerily similar. But it was the evidence they found at the scene that sent an absolute shockwave through the investigation.
And here it is, the bombshell that changed everything. Ballistics experts matched the shell casings from the 1974 crime scene directly to the 1968 murder. This wasn't a jealous husband. This was something else entirely. This was the work of a serial killer. The Monster of Florence now had a name, and a hunt was officially on.
After another long silence, the killer came back in the early 1980s. And this time, the attacks were more frequent, they were more brazen, and honestly, they were far more sadistic. This was when the Monster of Florence truly began his reign of terror.
All told, over the course of 8 double murders, at least 16 people lost their lives. And his targets were always the same: couples, in cars or tents, looking for a bit of privacy out in the Tuscan countryside. He turned moments of love into scenes of just unimaginable horror. But see, the shootings were only the beginning. Between 81 and 85, the attacks escalated horribly. Just murdering them wasn't enough anymore. He started to linger at his crime scenes, using a knife to perform these grotesque, ritualistic mutilations on his female victims. It was clear he was evolving, becoming more monstrous with every single attack.
So you can just feel the shift in the city, right? What was once a forgotten local tragedy completely transformed into citywide panic. The Monster of Florence wasn't just a criminal anymore, he was the boogeyman. And those beautiful hills that used to symbolize romance? Now, they were his hunting grounds.
So the public is terrified, the media is in a frenzy, and the pressure on law enforcement was just immense. The whole investigation became this sprawling, chaotic search for a killer who was like a ghost, and it really exposed some deep cracks in the Italian justice system. And this became the one question that obsessed an entire nation. Who was the monster? Was he a lone wolf? Was he part of some kind of satanic cult? The police explored countless theories, they interrogated hundreds of people, and eventually they zeroed in on a few main suspects. The legal proceedings were, well, they were a maze. You have Pietro Pacciani, a farmer with a violent past. He was convicted and then acquitted. Then you have his alleged accomplices, Mario Vanni and Giancarlo Lotti, who were also convicted, but their involvement, and especially Lotti's confession, are still highly controversial. No single theory ever seemed to fit all the facts.
And here's the real kicker, the heart of the whole mystery. That gun, the .22 Beretta, the one single piece of physical evidence that linked all 8 of these double murders, was never found. Without it, you could never definitively prove who pulled the trigger each and every time. The ghost's primary tool remained a ghost itself.
The last confirmed murder by the Monster of Florence was in 1985, and then the killings just stopped, as abruptly as they began. But the story was far from over.
The case has become this indelible part of Italian culture. It's a modern ghost story, the kind told to warn young lovers. It's the subject of endless books and documentaries, and it's just a permanent scar on the psyche of Florence. Which leads us to the one question that has just echoed through the decades, completely unanswered. Where did he go? Did he die? Was he imprisoned for some other crime? Or did he simply stop? That silence he left behind is almost as terrifying as the crimes themselves.
To this day, the case remains officially unsolved. The Monster of Florence was never truly identified, leaving behind this chilling legacy of fear and the haunting possibility that one of Italy's most brutal killers lived and perhaps died a free man.